yeah, I stopped for him, but then all of a sudden it shifted. Now I was putting up these boundaries to me. I'm not going to drink. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I want. And I remember crying to her and asking her, how will I know when I love myself? Because I felt such a big hole here. And she goes, Viv, when you are faced with two choices in front of you, and you do not take the road that's the immediate gratification, but the one that you want, the life that you want to create, that's when you know that you love yourself. Because one day you will look up and you will be right in the middle of the life that you just created.
Stories are powerful.
Welcome to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast, brought to you by The Phoenix. This is a space where people impacted by substance use can come to share their story of strength and resilience, get open and honest, and inspire hope and build community through shared experience.
We'll be talking to people in our community on their own recovery journey and shine a light on the topic of recovery in all its forms. Maybe you'll hear some of your story in theirs.
Let's show the world that together we rise, recover, and live.
Yo, Bryce the Third here, popping on before we get this episode started to let you know of some cool stuff we got coming up. August 10th, from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are going to be doing our very first live podcast virtually. This will be a program that you can register for right now in the Phoenix app. You'll get the notification before the event starts, and then you just pop onto the Phoenix app and join. We're going to be having a live conversation guided by our special guest, you. We'll be building community, answering questions, and sharing stories in real time. And I cannot tell you how excited I am about it. So open up your Phoenix app right now, go register for that program, and don't just register, show your butt up. We usually crack like 500 downloads an episode, and I really want to see each and every one of you. Bring your mama, tell your cousin, bring the kids, put them on your lap, and let's rise and recover live. Who I've been wanting to say that? All right, let me let you go so you can enjoy today's episode. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rise, Recover, Live podcast. We are your hosts, Bryce the Third, he, him pronouns.
And Liz McKean, she, her pronouns. And if you would like to support the show, we're just throwing a new little part of the intro in here. We'd love to have you join us every single week. And a really great way to do that is to hit subscribe on whatever podcast app you are listening to us on so that you don't miss anything. And if you haven't already, we're super grateful if you would give us a rating, give us a review. Those are things that allow more people to find the show. So I want to just throw that in there on the front end this time.
Yeah, so we get them on a hook on the front. So now there's no excuse. Subscribe.
And we're just grateful that you're here. Yeah, so even if you never do any of those things, please just keep coming. But yeah, if you're looking for ways to support the show, that is an enormous help. So
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. How is your energy, Liz?
My energy is grateful to be here with you and our guest that I'm so excited to talk to in a moment. Also, a little nervous anytime we change anything up like that. I'm like, ooh, my heart is racing a little bit. It's got a little roasty toasty. So, there we go.
Well, it's such a wonderful thing that this is a space for us to show up however it is we decide to show up today in all of our iterations and forms. This is a space for that evolution and growth. So
that's right.
I commend you, and a little golf clap for showing up in a different way, Liz.
Well, thank you. I've moved my cheese and it's worked out okay. How's your energy today, Bryce?
I'm good. I'm ready to go outside. Yesterday, we got the thing that was up in New York where the smoke from Canada made it to Detroit. And yesterday, Detroit's air quality was the worst in the world. So, if you were outside for more than 20 minutes, you was feeling like you was smoking cigarettes. And I didn't know this at the beginning of the day. So I'm on this new kick. I'm like, okay, I get up in the morning, I'm going to jump rope, I'm going to do some burpees. So it was about halfway through my burpees where I realized something's going on because I'm doing burpees And so, but I made it through and I'm alive. And today, I guess the air quality is clearing up a bit. So I'm going outside after this.
Go do your burpees outside. Well, that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, be
Who do we
safe.
have here today, Liz?
Well, we have the fabulous, wonderful, and dear friend to the podcast, Viv Ulrich. Viv is the founder and executive director of iThrive. She is an internationally certified professional recovery coach who specializes in holistic wellness for women. She's a public relations director for the Sobertown Podcast, and she is the host of the Sobertown Podcast. And Bryce and I have both been guests on the Sobertown Podcast. Okay. So we are old friends coming together. So Viv, thank you for being here. How are you today?
I am doing excellent. I'm really happy. It feels like coming home anytime I'm here with you guys because it's a familiar conversation and it feels like home.
Yes.
That's like one of the highest thing somebody can say, for real. Like, this feels like home. I feel comfortable. I feel safe. I feel welcome. And that's the environment that we hope to create for you. I'm excited to see you. For those of you who don't know, because you haven't listened to the Sobertown podcast, we showed up on her podcast and we were labeled the Yin Yang Twins. and ever since, that has been like me and Liz's nickname. And Liz thought it was the yin yang as in like the black and white, but I'm like, no, as in shake it like a salt shaker or like from the window to the walls. Liz, we are the yin yang twins. And the world has not been the same since. So.
That's true. Yeah, got the little yin yang symbol though next, like the actual, like the little circle, next to your contact and my phone, Bryce. I think actually you did that first, and then
I did it first.
Yeah,
and then I showed you, and then you copied me.
And then I copied
you're the yang to my yin.
I know. Aw, shucks. So thanks,
I'm
Viv.
so happy. I'm so happy I could leave that little nugget right there.
For those of you who are not watching this on YouTube, which a lot of times it's a dope thing to do, to pop over to YouTube and watch these episodes on YouTube just to see some of the facial expressions, see how we're showing up and presenting ourselves physically, see what type of pajama shirt Bryce has on today. But for those of you who are not watching this on YouTube, Viv is sitting in front of a whole bunch of dope art on the back wall. And you mentioned a bit about what it was about before we got the show started, but like, what is this art behind you?
So the art behind me is actually my husband. My husband's art, Rehab Therapy, and look him up on Instagram, Rehab Therapy. So one of the things was leading into that, when I became sober, I thought I was the one that only had an addiction in the family. I was the one with blackout. I was the one that was just tipping TVs in a rage. I was the problem child. And then I decided to get sober for him because leading up to it, it was just weighing on him so much. And then once I became sober, it was in month 4. So everybody was on good behavior in my family, including my husband, right? So everybody's like, don't tip, don't do this, don't do that. And everybody was like on eggshells for me. And I didn't realize this. Alcoholism had me in such a veil. It just had engulfed everything. And when that happened, it was at month 4, I realized my husband had 3 different addictions going on. And it was incredible because I thought I had no clue. We had both spun out because of grief. And instead of running to each other, we ran to our coping mechanisms. And those coping mechanisms were non-coping mechanisms. They were just, things that we didn't want to feel. We didn't want to feel our feelings. We were running, but we didn't run towards each other. We ran not on purpose from each other, but in the things how we grew up that made us feel safe. And he's given me full on permission to talk about it. And his 3 that I had no realization at that moment was porn, pills, and poker. So all 3 of them. So when the when the money was running short in the bank account, because of course, here I am, I'm, not paying attention. I mean, either in a drunken stupor, or I was getting sober. And that was all in my first 4 months was sober. You get sober, you don't drink, you don't drink, you don't drink. And then where we lived was a high rise, and downstairs was the pub and the liquor store. So yeah, so it was like, just, that's all my unconscious mind said. You don't drink, you don't drink, you don't grab a drink, you don't drink. That's all I could do. And get up in the morning and brush my teeth. So I wasn't paying attention to anything. So when I came to, and I talk about it being like in a coma, when I came to and I started looking at the bank account, the money was flowing in and flowing out as fast. So when the money was going down, when the pills had run out, what was the free thing that was available to him? And that was the porn. And it was so, at the time, I just didn't even know about betrayal. I didn't even know about that porn could even be an addiction. It was so, everything, all this language was so foreign to me. So I decided, that I needed to get sober first, understand what I was going through before I could even deal with someone else's addiction. Because I didn't even have that conversation to even name that. So to go back to the original, this was in our marriage, a lot of things happened. But what he did is, when he came to and out of his coma, he started pouring into his art therapy. And art was what really saved him. He found any time that he wanted to use in any way, shape, or form, and save our marriage and save himself and do all of the things and be together and grow together. It was the art. And we had, this whole room, and we've given away art, and we've, it's been just one of his missions. He's done shoes, tennis shoes, custom tennis shoes, all over the place. And that was all I saw. And it was wonderful because that brought about just growing together. And now he's a recovery coach as well. So
it's incredible. Wow. And you were in like the, early stages of recovery where, like you said, that focus was having to be just don't drink, and also in the face of pretty, potentially temptations like that were right there underneath your home. And that's when you kind of came across this. What was that like? As far as, I feel like, it's so easy in those early vulnerable days to be like, well, that's too hard now. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, this seems like a reason to go in this direction. And like for, such a major part of your support system to be having a struggle that you didn't know about. And especially just like that mind shift of like, I thought I was the worst person in the whole wide world. Nobody else was doing anything wrong ever. And like, whoa, that wasn't true at all. Like did you feel strong in your recovery? Was that just like a no-brainer? I'm just going to continue to stick to focus on this? Or was there a moment of like deciding, like having to really make that choice?
That's a really, really good question. And I say this, when I became sober, I did it for him because he was the one that was getting the brunt of my anger. He had lost his son. We were both in grief. And it had been 2 years that we were both in grief. And for me, I was like just drinking. Now it was shaking 24/7. Now I wasn't even feeling the buzz anymore. And I was drinking straight liquor in the morning. And because ignorance is bliss in my state, if I knew what liquor was going to do, I couldn't even understand myself as being an alcoholic. I couldn't label myself that, because in alcoholism, in my thought, people don't have, high producing sales jobs. People don't have nice things. People don't, excel where they work. And we had a business together. So we were both, in real estate investing and mortgage brokers. How was that even possible? It wasn't even, and we were like considered in our industry the power couple. So the power couple was, Viv was going through grief. He was going through grief. We were showing up for our clients, handing them keys to the home, but we were basically at the end, about 5 o'clock, I was getting tanked. And then after that, in the morning, I would wake up and it was hair of the dog. And I didn't think anything of it. So I was drinking in the morning. And then that led to the cycle of now I'm just on a constant hamster wheel of it, right? So then I just did not want to, nothing against AA. I tried it out. I went with another friend that it was an AA. He took me to AA. He was another mortgage lender. And I just didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable as a Latina woman. I had so many stereotypes that I had self-imposed culturally that I had to overcome, because I was like, not only as a mortgage lender in a male dominant industry, but I'm also a woman and I'm also a minority woman. So all of these things made me feel just there was nowhere I could go. And because of it, I decided, and thank God I had the funds to seek out a sober coach, because I thought to myself, because I tried the gym, like I tried a gym trainer, and I thought she's going to keep me accountable. I'd show up basically wasted, in the morning. And that wasn't helping. That wasn't making me stop drinking. His pleas to stop drinking, Viv, we're only going to have this much, one drink at the mixer that we would go to. But the caveat was, okay, I'll have a couple of drinks, but I want to have a couple of bottles of wine waiting for me when I get home. So that was the secret, right? And that was us, being, this is our marriage and this is how we're going to keep it. But then in the drunken stupors, it was, you're not coming out of your depression. I'm so angry. It's enough. Why aren't you coming out of the depression? And on his end, it was like, Viv, why can't you handle your scandal? Handle your scandal, girl. If you can't drink, don't drink, man. Because someone that doesn't know alcohol, it will say, well, why can't you just handle it, man? You can handle everything else. And so I'd turn to him and I would say, do you think I'm an alcoholic? Nah, Viv, you just, you just don't know when to stop, and you need it. And none of us. So that led me to Instagram, the hashtags, and looking for coaches, because I thought if there's coaches for, kids, if there's coaches for all kinds of things, business coaches. I had done life coaches. I had done shamanic. I had a, shamanic life coach, and all of it to get rid of the drinking that I was seeing it progress over time. So finally, I hired an addictions recovery coach that seemed to be a great fit for me. And in that first day, from drinking so hard, I stopped the same day. Like I stopped and I was going to see her in 5 days. I did not know that detox could kill you. I did not know. So when I thrashed his 40th birthday, because there was an all-inclusive in Mexico, and I drank 24/7. So instead of celebrating his birthday, he was taking care of someone that was drunk. So then I live in Los Angeles, and I was like, okay, sweetie, I'm going to make it up to you. I'm going to go we're going to go to TJ 3 days, and we're just going to celebrate you. It was a cork underneath the water. I stopped drinking. And then on the third day, it was the big eating. I couldn't stop drinking. And then 4 days later, we were supposed to leave the next day. And I started feeling, I'm going to see this woman. I need to stop drinking today. I stopped drinking, but it was like I was drinking 24/7 on that TJ trip. And the shaking wouldn't stop, the whole from head to toe. And so when I stopped, it was 3 days of agonizing. I didn't know what the heck was happening. I felt like it was just unbearable. It was between throwing up, the shakes. It was what I had seen on intervention, but what I had seen was people going through, maybe some other withdrawal. Maybe they were going heroin. And I was like, how is this happening? And we both had no clue.
Mm-hmm.
So met my sober coach. She looked at me and my hair was like in disarray. It was the third day of detox. And I looked like the Exorcist and Uma Thurman with the pen through my heart, and just came to the phone. And she goes, I said, I'm just tired of this and I can't do this anymore. And she said, I think you've hit bottom. And I didn't even know what bottom was, because my bottom is you lose everything.
Right.
Family. I'm not what I thought bottom was. It wasn't that somebody that's handling a mortgage career or any type of career, because I interviewed now people that are professors, in huge named universities, drinking hand sanitizer. So I didn't know that then, but this sober coach, she led me through it. She got me into community. And a community meaning, she goes, you need a daily counter. I went and looked for one, and it was the I Am Sober app. And then I saw the community button there. And then I saw people writing, because even though I had gone through that, I didn't realize. I thought it was a fluke. I thought it was something that maybe too much sugar, maybe my body wasn't.
Wow.
I was like, this is not possible. So as I'm going through this, and I'm taking the long way to answer your question, but the truth was that as I'm going through this, and at the 4th month of it, now they say, and I've heard this, sobriety will fuck up your drinking. So sobriety had fucked up my drinking. I didn't know how good I could feel sober. And it was no longer the bloat. It was, if you see my before and afters, I have 100-day, 90 days sober, and all the swelling had gone down. It was, she told me it was a good idea for me to work out. And she was an accountability coach, and she had me working out. And so all these changes were happening in my body. And they were for the better. It was no longer waking up with a hangover. It was no longer having to, now, my husband and I, we talk about it, and it was no longer having the addiction was my actual partner. And he was the third wheel.
Mm.
And so in that, I stopped for him, but then all of a sudden it shifted that now I was putting up these boundaries that, to me, I'm not going to drink. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I want. And I remember crying to her and asking her, how will I know when I love myself? Because I felt such a big hole here. And she goes, Viv, when you are faced with 2 choices in front of you, and you do not take the road that's the immediate gratification, but the one that you want, that the life that you want to create, that's when you know that you love yourself. Because one day you will look up and you will be right in the middle of the life that you just created. And I was like, wow. So that's what it is. So when that happened at 4 months, I was now living and doing this for me. The shift was mine. people, my kids, it was, now I could understand that my kids, they're now in their 30s. I'm a grandmother, and I wasn't a grandmother back then, but they could call me at 10 o'clock at night and they could ask me for advice, and I was going to be there. They could call me at 2 a.m. if something happened, and I was going to be there. I had a community of people that understood, and without shame, when I was writing and pouring everything into these, it was a journal, because there were no Zooms that I attended. It was just me and this coach, but I could write it all down. And at 90 days, I started an Instagram page of Recovering Out Loud. So when I went into IAS, my world was so small. It felt like everybody in Los Angeles was the only people that were going to be on that app. And some people were going to see me. So everybody uses pseudonames, and I had no picture. And I was, my first name on there was Sober and Alive. Because I was like, I just got out of there alive. And then it went into I Feel and I Heal. And then it went into Sober, I Thrive. And that's where that happened. So when his addiction showed up, I was hurt. I was hurt, but I was like, his addictions, I would go back to my sober coach and I said, this is what's happening. What do you think? And she's like, he told me he wasn't going to be gambling. He told me he wasn't going to be doing the pills are finished. He told me he wasn't going to be doing this. And she was like, how many times did you tell yourself in the morning you weren't going to drink? And later that evening, you did, Viv. That's what addiction is. That's where compassion kicks in. And, the rule of thumb is, she told me, and I've studied this now, you don't do any major life decisions in the first year. So it was like, unless you are triggered to where you're going to relapse and it's going to shake you up. So we did everything that we could. And in that journey, we went to a recovery coach that he found on Instagram, and she said she could help him. And I had my own, and she was telling him some of the things that my recovery coach was insane. She was saying, we never say never to our addiction. We learn from it. And I was like, wait a minute. That doesn't sound right to me. And so I told my recovery coach about this, and she goes, let me look up her license. We had paid her $7,000 to help him through. And she looked up her license, and it was in yoga certification. And she's like, Viv, you got to break away. That she doesn't know what she's doing, and you have to get them into a plan. Well, to an addict, when someone is in deep addiction, if I wouldn't have been ready and somebody would have wanted to do an intervention on me, and I would put my roles reverse. What would have happened if he got sober first? So then I would say I'd be pretty pissed. Somebody's trying to take my alcohol away. So yeah, so I could only, what I would do at that point is I was like, okay, I can't leave. I got to work on myself, because things are going to arise in my life. And if I let this deter me from being sober, then anything's going to knock me down. I had relapses, absolutely. But I had relapses before I got a recovery coach. I was just calling them sober experiments. I was doing Sober October and, what is it? The New Year's plan.
Yeah.
And 27 days max, 2 weeks max. And I was hitting it right back. So those were relapses. I just didn't know I was relapsing.
Yeah.
And that's the answer to the question was, I think it all happened in divine timing, that he was just trying to shelter me, because tipping TVs and driving under the influence at 3:00 in the morning when you're pissed off doesn't work well in a marriage. But the other addictions, which are pills and, porn and poker, is not something that shows up like alcoholism. It's very different. But it's the same thing. It's the same addiction, just shows up different.
Yeah. And in that moment, that was your crossroads that she had mentioned to you. Like there'll be that moment where you have a choice. Like, did you recognize that in that moment? Like this, I'm choosing this life that I want to lead, or did you just do it?
In that moment, I felt that I would say, what would, and her name is Heather, I would say, what would Heather do? And I would take a drive. I would leave the house and I would take a drive. I was no longer tipping the TVs. I was taking the drive. I was sitting in whatever I had learned in even shamanic wisdom. And I was using that. I was using meditation. I was listening to, it was no longer about him. He was his own entity and I was over here doing my thing. And I was moving forward. But it did come a time where now he was angry because I was sober. It was his addiction that was angry. And we talk about it now. He was getting into arguments over me because he was like, well, we just had this conversation. I just wanted her sober. I just wanted her to put down the drink. I didn't want this whole sobriety thing. I didn't want her in my business. I didn't want her knowing what the heck I was doing. Well, she's on me now. I can't hide it, And it was like, I would tell him, I'm in a canoe and there's being holes drilled all over and you're the one that's drilling the holes, man. I was like, we're supposed to be on this canoe together. And so we continued together until what started to happen was unconscious behavior of his was he told me a couple of times, and because now I had to implement boundaries. We went on vacation. He was taking shots because we used to drink on vacation together. But no, Viv was no longer taking shots. She was just sober. And all of a sudden he's ordering shots and he's drinking like I used to drink, and he's changing. And I could see all of these addictions happening all at once on a vacation. I called up my sober coach immediately and I said, this is what's going on. How am I going to handle this? And the hypervigilance to see people drinking all the time was happening because you're now in that crossroads too. And she was like, Viv, are you a tree? I said, no. You have choice and you can move. Give him the boundary. If he can't handle his scandal, 2 drinks. And then if not, you know what? Is the resort big enough? Yes. Then you go to the other pool and you'll meet up at night with him. That's what, it was like, what do I do? What do I do? I was so confused. I thought I was going to get a reward. I thought I was going to have the celebration. I thought I was going to have the ribbon cutting ceremony because I was sober and I was met with all of this. And I was like, it was crazy. So that's what I did. I came back, I regrouped, and I said, hey, I think if you didn't drink and you had 2 max shots a day, we would have a way better vacation. He was like, you can't tell me what to do. And then the waiter comes over and he ordered 2 more shots. I had to make that choice. That was the pivotal moment of boundaries, because I said, if you choose to do this, I'm going to have to move. And he did. And I grabbed my little tote bag and I walked to the other side, and I didn't show up to the room till like 8 p.m. He was mad. And I was like, and he gets to be mad and it's okay. And if he does this tomorrow, the same thing will happen. Well, the rest of the vacation, he didn't drink. And so I started to realize, and he told me, I liked you. There was one point that he told me, and it hurt my feelings. I liked you better when you drank. And I knew that wasn't the truth. Even though it hurt. And I went again to my own sober coach and I was like, he said he liked me better. He's in deep addiction. From what you're telling me, it's the addiction speaking. It's not him. And more and more, I could realize what was happening, because then I would put myself in that position when my girls would tell me, Mom, we don't like it when you drink. And I was like, who the hell do you think you are? I'm the one that raised you. I'm your mother. I paid, and I went into that tangent. Of course, the addict within me and the addict within him was going to have rage. The culmination came to when he was provoking fights, and he was ordering shots and leaving them there and walking out the room. And so this was the almost 8-9 months into my sobriety. I looked at them and I was like, I have another choice. No one's looking, no one's babysitting. What? Then I remembered, how will I know when I love myself? When I choose the life that I want to create, not the easiest right now. And I went to the corner of the opposite end because I couldn't even throw them out. I couldn't even throw the alcohol out. I couldn't put my hand on the alcohol to throw it out. So I went to the opposite side of the room and I curled up in fetal position and I cried because I couldn't drink. And that was just, that afterwards was, I felt invincible. I felt limitless. I felt, fuck, I'm here and I'm doing this for me. And at that point, right after that, I said, you know what? I don't think this is working out. I don't think you can stop, and I can't stop you. I can't. Nobody could stop me. So I'm just going to have to move out. And his response was, okay. There was no, please don't go, baby. Please don't go. I wanted that. But the addiction, And so when I ended up leaving, it was so hard. It was so hard because I thought it was over. And I even called up we were under an umbrella company with our business. I called up the corporate and I said, please rip up our contract. We are now 2 independent people. And I have nothing to do with his entity. And I remember my boss asking me, what happened? And I said, we've had a disagreement within, we don't see eye to eye. And that's where I left it at. And I continued on my road and it was painful and it hurt. And at the same time, I bought a house because I thought to myself, I was with my mom or my mom had her own home. She was getting older and she was like, why don't I sell? I said, the market's hot. She sold her home and I moved like an hour away on the outskirts of Los Angeles because I needed to get away because make a clean break because I couldn't watch the addiction. I was fearful that he was going to end up homeless and I couldn't watch it. He knew where I was. He knew how to get help. He knew. And I took solace in knowing that. And I went up on my life. I did my life. And at that point, 3 months later, he called me up and he was just broken like I was. And he said, I need your help because whatever you're doing, I want some of that. I want to do it too, Viv. And it was like, okay, we have boundaries. You live in your home. You find the addictions counselor. I'm going to give you a group. When you find the addictions counselor, you found the marriage counselor that specializes in addiction. You do all these things and we can start to talk. So it was he started to do, and then I could see, I could see the change. And here we are now. Now he's in addictions. He just graduated with his, becoming a certified addictions recovery coach. And he's one of he helps out in SPA, which is the part of AA, which is sex and porn addiction, because that's what is it. And they have different branches. But within that, he also wants to be able to have help. What it is it's a ripple effect. It's a ripple effect. And in this journey, I then started to mentor women after when our marriage started to recover. Then I gave my recovery story to Sobertown, and then Sobertown kind of mushroomed and grew. And they one of the ladies said, "You know what? There's someone that needs help." And I wasn't even an addictions recovery coach. I was just a peer. So helped her. So then that grew into about 15 women, and they were all having husbands that were drinking, and they were like, "How did you do it?" And then their husbands came into recovery, and it was just something so beautiful. So that's how it grew.
That was a movie, Viv. I gotta say.
Edge of my seat, yeah.
That was a movie, and I didn't, we've kicked it a couple of times before, and I know you're a good spirit. I just didn't know what to expect from this interview, like where we would have went with it. But we just had Phil Valentine on the show from C-Car, and I know he would be proud to hear this episode because of the importance of recovery coaching and how huge a role having somebody who has been through it, who has experienced it, and has continued to intentionally build the tools to aid others in going through it, to be able to call at these junctures where like there's things going on that you've never experienced before in recovery, and to have that expertise and to have somebody to help walk you through. I think the relationship thing, like there's so many things that I've experienced that I heard in your story. And I know somebody's hearing this podcast and it's like, yo, like, wow, I thought I was the only one that experienced this. And the detail of healing with someone else and teetering that line, or learning how to have that balance of not taking on somebody else's healing for them, coming into recovery in an existing relationship where the rules and boundaries were one thing, and then you changed, and now you came back, and those rules and boundaries that were no longer apply because you're different. And what does that look like now that you've shaken up the structure of this agreement? Like there's so many things that you shared that's like, yo, there's got to be like thousands, if not like hundreds of thousands of people that have had this experience and want to know, like, how do you show up? And the moment where like the shots were ordered and left in the room with you, and you decided to make that conscious decision to like cry it out, and even the detail of like, I couldn't even touch it. Like, this is real life shit, people. This is real life. And oh man, we are absolutely honored to have you share your story on this platform, because I know this is going to touch people. And, I want to point out that not every ending ends like how yours did. And not to say that there's an ending. Of course, as long as we're alive, we're still writing our story. And where it is that you are now is like, it's a beautiful place to be, where because addiction and alcoholism can be contagious. And it's like, yo, I got to get around mindsets, people, community that represent my future versus my past. And recovery is contagious. Where it's like, this person that I love and that I've come to connect with and that I've known for so long, and, that I have family with, they did this thing, and now left to all my own devices, like I'm burning shit to the ground. Who can I call? Who, I mean, that gets me through my ego, which would like, I'll never call her. Like my ego would have me, I don't care what happens. I'm never calling her. But like that connection, that love, that reference point allows me to get over my ego and have the humility to call you and let you know, like, yo, I don't know what it is that you got. And I know I was a jackass, but like I need some of that. Like I'm struggling, I'm going through it, and then that contagion of recovery, like the virality of like people getting better in our circle and having that ripple effect and allowing other people to get better. And then to see how you tapped into, the Sobertown, and then you got other families that are affected by you and you seeking to grow professionally, personally, spiritually within yourself. Like it's all of your story is a perfect example of the power and impact that one person deciding to do something different can have on a community and on themselves. I do have a question though. Did you ever, so when you were in withdrawal, did you ever go to the emergency room or to the doctor, or did you you never ended up in there?
I was in TJ. I was there for a 3-day weekend to make it up to him.
What is TJ?
Tijuana, Mexico.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I'm from Detroit. I'm like TJ Maxx.
Like
you
TJ
was there
Maxx.
for 3 days.
Sorry. I was thinking TJ. So yeah, Tijuana, Mexico is right across the border because I'm in Los Angeles, San Diego, hop, skip, and a jump. So in Tijuana, Mexico, I'm like Courtney Love. Like I'm thinking, I can't end here. This can't be I'm a cliche up here. And I will say that, no joke, I had this one song playing on loop in my mind the whole 3 days. Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive. And it was that story, that song, you walk out that door, you're not welcome here anymore. I was If this is what you did to me, I felt betrayed by alcohol. I was mad, and of course, and this is the thing, my husband couldn't take me anywhere because we were in Tijuana, Mexico. He's like, I'm going to end up, because we didn't know that I could die. We did not know. Mm-hmm. I did not want to know. Like I was looking at the WebMD, how do I know if I'm an alcoholic? But the thing is, for anything that you look, am I this? There's the opposite that says you're not that. There's a justification. One drink is needed, is okay a day or 2 days or 2 drinks a day. But then there's the other science that says that women absorb alcohol differently than men because of the fat. And then this is it. So it stays in the system, and we're showing up with a lot more breast cancer, and we're showing up with a lot more, polyps, and nobody's talking about this. And nobody's saying that, hey, you know what? If you drink this in excess, you will become dependent on it 100%, and you can die from it once you stop drinking it. Mm-hmm. I did not know any of this.
Yeah, that's not at the forefront of the culture. It was at the forefront of my spirit, though. I remember when you said that you told him, your partner, that if he just had two shots, he'd be. I'm like, what the fuck is the point of 2 shots? Like, why would I ever if like that? So you could tell, like, spiritually for me, like, I knew, yeah.
Well, the thing was, the 2 shots is the way I think about it is this way. He is a normie or a muggles. That's how it goes.
Harry Potter has infiltrated the recovery space.
so it's the drink is not like, he's the type of person that would drink half a glass of wine with dinner and be walking, oh, I'm done. And I'm like, well, what are you doing with this? So that's my Achilles. So we could go, let's say, which we don't, but we could go to Vegas. I could stick $100 bill in there and pull the slot once and say, oh, I'm tired of this. Let's go to the pool. He'll be itching, it'll be itching going on, like, oh, so it doesn't light up my side of the brain. That doesn't light up for me. Alcohol doesn't light up for him either. So that's why I was like, if you're going to drink, go ahead and have 2 shots and then, do whatever you're going to do. So he was like, no. I'm like, if you don't have a problem drinking, this shouldn't be a problem for you, because that's what he held on to. But you're on vacation, and what we don't understand, or what I didn't understand at the time, is that people, it teaches you. And the reason that I got into doing the studies of addiction was not to become a sober coach. That was not that was not the reason. The reason was because my recovery coach had told me, Viv, why don't you take the classes? And if anything, you'll know yourself better. And I was like, you think so? She goes, yeah, you're mentoring these women. I was totally in still, real estate, investment, mortgage, doing all of the aspects. I've done it 25 years. So it wasn't something that was like a thought to leave, because that's what I did forever, right? So once I got into addiction recovery, and then I started seeing and uncovering all these things that I didn't know, like, when we find ourselves, I thought that the awareness of having, a trigger, which is usually the word that all of us will know, is people, places, and things. And I was like, well, what do you mean people, places, and things? And people, places, and things, why? Because people, even not the way you got pissed off at them, or not the ones that, it's people like the people you hang out with. You may just watch it and your brain lights up. Places, the watering hole, the restaurant where you drink, things, baby showers, baptisms, quinceañeras, things like that for me. But if you don't have those awareness, if it's not taught to you, you're just walking in blindly, and you're not even self-prepared for it. That's why it brings me back to the other thing that I was like, when this happened in the whole mortgage, and we had this last podcast, and I was talking about this before. Bryce, I had his interview, and the day before, the mortgage that I had worked for, it closed its region down in California. And I was like, well, even if I wanted to go back, I can't. I do have my mortgage license. I'd be working at a bank or a call center or something like that, but I don't want to do that. So I was in a crossroads. My spirit was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I, talked to Bryce about it, and Bryce is like, follow your passion, Viv. Do what you love. You are, red pill. You've taken the red pill and the blue pill. Now you find where you're gonna fit in that puzzle piece. So I started thinking to myself, what is the puzzle piece? What is the need? I was lucky that I was in a financial situation that I could help, get someone to help me. But what is happening to the minorities? And I could bring the stats and I could do all of that, but this is lived experience. And I know who I drink with, and I know what my culture is. And I know that to talk about mental health, to talk about alcoholism, to talk about any type of substance abuse in my culture, but also open to many cultures, as such as, being a minority. And I'm open, and I'm helping here all women. I want women to be able to come and have sobriety coaches of their choice, and have the nonprofits fund them, so they don't have to, if they're like me, not step into AA. Because I did step into AA, but then I didn't find my tribe there at the time. And not to knock AA again, not to knock AA, but I didn't find my tribe there. I wanted to get clean on the screen. I wanted someone that I could be, very quiet. And if it didn't happen for me, I had no audience to see what was happening. And I know, and it hurts, that I'm walking into spaces that are huge in recovery. And I'm one of the minorities there. I want more of us. I want more of us to be able. So if this, by me, the Chicana, the woman that came up, is able to talk about it freely, and we had talked about it with Liz about labels, alcoholism, alcoholic. You know what? It's cool. For me, I ran away from that label. I just did everything I could to avoid it. If I can embrace it, and this is the label that people will understand, and you're going to look at me and you're going to say, that's what it looks like too. And that's what it looks like too. So maybe I can address this. Maybe there's somewhere I can talk to. It's okay. and lose that stigma.
Man, this has been an impactful episode on me. I'm sure I speak for Liz too. And we really appreciate you coming and just being so transparent and so honest and so open about your experience. And that's how we build community here. Out of respect for time, I got one question for you before we get up out of here. And that's and I know I can just tell by looking at you and getting to know you more and more, the more interactions we have, like your story is most definitely still being written. And if you were able to go back to any previous chapter of your story and reach out to any previous iteration of Viv, what iteration would that be? And what would you tell her?
Don't be scared. Use that word scared for excited. You're excited. You don't know what's up. Get excited, girl. This is something new.
I love it. Beautiful words. And I feel like this episode has been so, just like Bryce said, it's like a movie. Like, if we have any movie producers listening, like, let's make this a movie. Like, this is a story that needs to be on the big screen. I've been on the edge of my seat this whole time. But I think, just helping to say out loud that, alcohol withdrawal can be fatal. Like, if you are, drinking to that extent, like you could, like seizures are a real possibility. And like, that medical support is really important. Like you said, people don't know that. We talk about all sorts of different recovery stories. We had my husband on the show, but to talk about having a partner who, is also struggling with his own addictions and then, maybe tries to even influence you to get back into yours in order to support it like that. I don't think we've talked about that. Like these are really real experiences that, folks are having, and to hear about it and know that that's a real thing is powerful. And then the biggest piece I want to just highlight so that you can just kind of bring us home with some more education is for all the people who are listening, who absolutely are going to be wondering, how do I get me some of that? How do I get me some of that recovery coaching? Where would you send them to learn more and to get some more of you? Because they're going to want more of you too.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. SoberIthrive.org. And I'm also on the page of Sobertown Podcast.com. There's a resource page on there, and we have the link to the recovery coaching, the International Association of Professional Recovery Coaching. So people can they can choose many coaches, not just myself, but I know the rigorous coaching that they went through. And so that way they can go through and take a look at a professional and not hire a yoga teacher.
But we do love yoga teachers to teach us yoga.
We do. Yeah. Just, for recovery. Yeah. But that way they can check it out. And because the trauma is different. Betrayal trauma is different. There's different type of addictions. And those are the two resource pages that they can come through me. And on there, I have the first link says, to find a recovery coach, a certified international. And then there's the ICF, and that's also on there as well.
Amazing. Yeah, and we will link it all.
Yeah, we'll post all that in the description of the podcast. And we'll link to the Sobertown Podcast episodes of me and Liz together and me and Liz separately. If you want to get more of the Yin Yang Twins and Viv together.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll have all those links there. Viv, thank you for being here. You are family. We're so, so grateful for you as a friend to us and to the show and to the Phoenix and just for all the work that you're doing in the world. So
likewise. I love you guys. You guys are amazing. Amazing. So thank you so much for this space and what you're doing in the community and what you're doing around the world.
Thank you. And thank you all listeners for listening. The way you can get in contact with us is to go download the app, the Phoenix app, when you hop in there, there's the community group section. Go in there and find the Rise, Recover, Live podcast community group and come talk to us. Let us know what you like about this show, what it is that you want to see more of, less of, what it is that you like specifically about this episode. Come holler at Viv. She'll be in there, I'm sure. And yeah, do that.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next time.
So now you're excited. Bryce, Liz, how do I get involved with the Phoenix? Well, my friend, it is super simple. We actually have an app. Head over to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or look in the show notes of this podcast, wherever you're listening to or watching this podcast, and go download the Phoenix app.
The Phoenix app makes it so easy to find classes that are near you or to access our virtual class schedule where you can hop on from the comfort of your home. You can also join our groups and have a conversation with someone from the Phoenix community from anywhere in the world. Please make sure that you join the podcast group where you can connect with Bryce and I and other listeners. Everything that you need is in the show notes. You can also head to our website at www.thephoenix.org. And maybe while you're there, you click the volunteer tab and get even more involved.